Within every generation, a patriarch finds a mysterious connection with his children. Today, separated by thousands of miles, a father and his daughters come together through the use of modern technology to share their unique insights and appreciation of uncommon cocktails and everything within the entire horror movie genre. From the creators of Friday Family Fright Nights, this is Cheers and Fears.
Well, hello, my beautiful daughters. Welcome again to another episode of Cheers and Fears. This time we get to do kind of a romantic one for, hopefully this is going to come out on Valentine's Day. So our topic of this week is romantic horror. And of course, the default was Bloody Valentine and all that kind of stuff, but we broadened it even more. And we each kind of made some selections and recommendations, which I got from you ladies, that I watched this last week to be prepared for this. So our drink of choice is just called the Valentine. And we don't all have that today, but I have this pretty example. This is for, the photo may not be of the actual product, but it's just called the Valentine's. Got banana liqueur, vodka, cranberry juice. So pretty simple, but a very pretty drink. Something that you can make for yourself and your romantic others if you're cuddling up for watching some horror movies. So we'll have that description of the drink, the ingredients and instructions in the description. So how's everybody doing? Everybody have fun watching some romantic horror this week?
Yeah,
always.
It was interesting to Google romantic horror and see kind of what would come up, because otherwise I didn't really know what that meant.
Yeah, and what I'm assuming once we get started in this discussion, that's going to kind of unfold too, because I was wondering the same thing, romantic horror, and then even within that, there's kind of the thriller, but there's the full-on gory psycho one that was started out a romantic story. But I watched one of each, so I had some options to talk about. But so the first one, based on your girl's recommendation, you actually introduced me to this whole series on Hulu called In the Dark. Had you girls known about that for a while and just were holding out on me?
Secrets.
Keep your secrets.
All right, you keep your secrets. Yeah, I mean, I always see and I'm intrigued, like if I'm going through stuff on Hulu, I really got to dive more into just all the different options in there that are in there. But yeah, specifically that one, I think, Brianna, did you suggest or somebody had for the one today? But
down, yeah.
What would you refer to it as? Just like, yeah, that like a subgenre that's like their own like category as far as like series or whatever, so he called it.
So that was, yeah, one of many episodes that I'm probably going to actually start watching that, because it sounds like they have episodes for different holidays and different topics. They're all done by different directors, which I love it when you can consolidate a series and be able to have so many different formulas based on kind of a thriller horror genre. I'm assuming they're all horror thrillers. I'll expand on that as I kind of dive in. But Down was 2019, I guess it said it came out, and it's part of the Into the Dark anthology. I'll put a link to this in the description. But there's 24 episodes, and this one was touting that it crossed both Valentine's Day and President's Day. And just the concept alone is a couple that gets stuck in a corporate elevator, and trouble ensues from there. I wanted to start off, first of all, I loved that it had somewhat of an indie feel because of the limited characters and limited locations. But it didn't, with the cinematography and the dialogue, it actually didn't feel indie based. But I had always had hopes and dreams to kind of put a storyline together, an independent film that only had 3 or 4 characters, and that's all you get. But the storyline is so kind of on the edge of your seat for some things. You keep guessing how they're going to get out of this, what's going to resolve out of this. And so I did enjoy it. I mean, it just felt kind of like a good episode of a series. So the cool thing was Matt Lauria and Natalie Martinez, the 2 stars of that, were also in a series that I watched it was years ago called Kingdom, about MMA fighting, and the 2 of them played MMA fighters. So, and I think that was pretty close to the time that actually came out. So it was 2-3 years ago. So cool. So they worked together. The director of that specific episode, Daniel Stem, I believe, is a German director. And it was kind of, I always like to look back to see what their history is of what kind of films they've done, if they've always done horror or if they always work with these actors and cinematographers. And he seemed like he kind of stuck with that genre, specifically the horror thriller genre, but he did a really good job, I thought, with this one. Who else had seen this specific episode?
Yep.
I watched it, yeah.
Oh, nice. We all have. Cool.
I haven't seen any of the others though.
I don't think I have either. Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on, how long ago was it that you saw it?
For me, actually, it's been a long time.
Yeah, I think I watched it earlier last year. But yeah, I liked it. I mean, I think kind of describing it as a good episode within a series is a good way to put it. I wouldn't have like anything, extra to say about it other than, I liked that you didn't have to have a whole lot of like character background to go off of because you learned as it went on, and then just being basically for the majority of it in a small space, but not really feeling like it was boring or limited by any means. Yeah, there were a lot of different moving parts even within that small, feeling of that small space. And the idea too of being like stuck in an elevator, that in itself I think is way creepy. No.
Yeah, that's everybody's nightmare.
Yeah, I watched it today actually, and like a few hours ago, and I wasn't very impressed until like the twist happened, and then I was like, okay, now I really got to see how this plays out. So that, yeah, but overall it was like an hour and 20 minutes, so not super long, but it wasn't my favorite. I don't think I wouldn't give it a great review. I'll just say that.
Do you remember much about it, Brianna?
Not that much.
Yeah, like you were saying, Lexi, it's not too much of like a dynamic storyline or film, this epic film. There were some elements that I did appreciate. Once that twist came, they started to change the camera angles within the elevator and also the colors. When there was a moment to change, all of a sudden the colors were more red and they weren't as white and blue and free. And so from that point on, everything became a little bit more dark. They recentered the camera, but they would still do these what's called Dutch angle shots that gave you this sense of very uncomfortable positioning with them. But they did a really good job that you didn't feel limited. You didn't feel like, oh my gosh, this is so boring. Enough happened with just the way that their relationship, without giving too much away, how they kind of come together, and you think this could be a cute little romantic story because that's how they want to kind of lead you down that path. And so the twist that came, I kind of predicted it, not as in depth and not as specific, but I was kind of foreseeing what actually unfolded. The ending, although, kind of surprised me. It ended, there's some gore in it too.
Yes.
They weren't afraid to use some blood and guts in that one, which, well, we appreciate that.
Sprinkle all that, little that.
Oh, I did want to say about Down, it kind of reminded me of the movie P2. Hopefully that doesn't give too much away. Maybe it does. I apologize. But once the twist happened and then it just gets a little bit more intense. Yeah, I don't know how to talk about it without giving it away, so I won't. But the movie P2, which is a Christmas movie.
I was gonna say, stay tuned for Christmas.
It's not Valentine's Day, but it does feature somewhat of a tortured love, so to speak. I don't know. Stalkers. Anyway.
So P2 had some similar elements. I haven't seen that one. Or is it just a
concept pretty heavily reminiscent of P2, and then the setting of like a corporate building. Yeah, and P2 it's named that because of like parking level 2 or parking garage 2 or whatever. So that, yeah, it just kind of reminded me.
Good rewatchability. I could watch that movie over and over. Still enjoy.
Really?
Yeah.
I think you girls, you recommended that around Christmas time. It didn't make it in my viewing, but I'll have to save it for the next holiday. Okay, well, what are some other movies that you ladies got to watch?
Well, I watched the first one I watched for this was Only Lovers Left Alive. And that was based on Brianna's recommendation, of course. Did you guys end up watching that one?
I didn't.
You didn't? Brianna, did you?
I didn't. I really wanted to, but I didn't.
Dad, you didn't watch it?
I'll watch it tonight.
I was gonna say,
Well,
tell us if we should watch it. That's
you
what I
should.
want.
Yeah, I was
You
waiting for
should.
the review.
I'll give my little review because it actually surprised me because based on the description, it's like, two vampires who are in love, have been for centuries, and you're kind of just like, I don't want to watch just a vampire love story. Honestly, I didn't. But anyway, gave it a shot in the spirit of Valentine's Day and based on Brianna's recommendation, and it was really good. And it features Tom Hiddleston and Tilda Swinton as the main character. So kind of an unlikely duo in a way, but it just, I think on screen just developed flawlessly. And it also has, I had to look up her name because I don't know her. It's Mia Wasikowska, I think is how you say her last name, but she's in it as well. And actually Tom Hiddleston and Mia are in another movie that I watched that I'll bring up. But this movie,
I know which one that is.
I
Alice too, right?
she
Isn't
is,
she?
yeah.
Oh, I know which one you're gonna talk about. Okay. We can talk about that one too. Okay, sorry. Got excited.
Well, I'll try and keep this as concise as possible, but I really liked this movie and I think you guys should watch it. And it's like the Tom Hiddleston's character is like this rock and roll vampire that's like depressed and kind of suicidal, and so it's just like this drama. But the soundtrack is great for the movie. I've actually been listening to it like quite a bit since then. And then Tilda Swinton's character is just their names are Adam and Eve. So they're just like these just badass vampires that they live on like different ends of the world basically, and then kind of come together, and it's based in America, in Detroit for most of the movie where Adam is living. And he's this musician, but he's anonymous. So he just puts out like this amazing music, but never wants anybody to know really who he is. So he kind of just lives in isolation as a recluse, and that probably doesn't help his depressive mood any. But it's kind of it. I don't know what else to say about it other than the references in it are what really made it for me, because throughout the movie, it's kind of an artsy film, and there's like minimal dialogue in a way, and it's mostly visual. And so it just like tells a story in very just creative ways. And there's some common themes, like they keep showing a circular motion through, like the opening of the movie is like this record spinning, and then it's also the two main characters top down view laying down in their separate living areas, and the camera's spinning. So it's like it introduces this circular motion, and it repeats throughout the movie, which I'm not really sure the meaning of that, but I know it's significant. Yeah, the references. So throughout, there's like, it's a comedy. I think that's one of the ways it describes it. So it's kind of funny on like unexpected times. And so there's these little references. Like at one point in Detroit, Adam and Eve are driving down at night because they can only go out at night because they're vampires. And they pull up to Jack White's old house, his house he grew up in, who is the main, he has his own band now, but he was in the White Stripes, which is a really popular band. So that's a music reference, and it's also like kind of funny the way that they brought it up. So anyway, they also have a lot of like science references to like pivotal people in scientific movements. So they reference Plato and Galileo, and some other people, and Darwin, but also references to art and literature. Like it's just whoever wrote this movie is just like, I don't know, it just kind of seemed like they put themselves into this movie in the deepest ways, and it was just this huge commentary on like culture and human culture, but especially like Western American human culture. And that's kind of why Adam, the main character, is like depressed, because he's been living for centuries and he sees how the human race is like, basically devolved into, he calls them zombies. He refers to all people as zombies. And And at one point, he has this buddy in the movie, and at one point, he was like, "You know what? You're okay for a zombie." And the guy is like, "Okay." Like, I don't know what that means, but cool. And yeah, all in all, it was really good. It was pretty heavy on the, they were obviously vampires. Like, you see them drink blood, you see their teeth, you can't go in sunlight. What I thought was cool is there's this one scene where Tilda Swinton's character, so Eve, she comes all the way from Tangier to Detroit and to see Adam for the first time in who knows how long, but she has to be invited in across the threshold still. Because vampires have to be invited in. So anyway, there's these little callbacks to just traditional vampire themes, and I thought that was pretty cool.
When did that come out?
That came out in 2014.
Okay, a little while ago.
Yeah. And there's this, I'll move on, but there's this one part that I thought was kind of funny where, like I was saying, there's a lot of references to like human culture and science and things like that. And so there's this one line where Adam says, well, he and Eve are talking and they're like thinking like, have the water wars happened yet? Oh no, they're still fighting over oil. Humans, they never learn until it's too late. And so it's like this, commentary on just like the oil issue and resources running out and whatever. And then there's also this scene where they find a mushroom, the Amanita muscaria mushroom, which people typically use for a lot of just tripping, I guess. It's a psychedelic, but they see it growing and Eve is like talking to it and she's like, it's not safe here. What are you doing? You shouldn't be here talking to this mushroom. And then Adam is like, it goes to show how little we know about fungi, because still it's just such a mysterious element of nature. So it's funny and artistic and also a great love story, and it tugs at your heart and in a lot of ways. So 10 out of 10 would recommend. Yeah.
Wow. Well,
any like gore? I mean, does it have any sort of, like bloodbath scenarios?
So I will say no gore. There's blood, and there is one dead body. Other than that, it's completely harmless. So it's probably very loosely fits into a romantic horror movie, but I really enjoyed it, so I don't care.
Cool.
Yeah.
So Brianna, what did you see this week?
I wanted to kind of find like love in a horror movie that was like unexpected or maybe like messed up or like some sort of stalker kind of situation, but I landed on different things. The first one was a zombie movie, and I wouldn't really even say it's any type of romantic, but so it's called #Alive. It's on Netflix. It's good. As far as a zombie movie goes, it's really good. The zombies are like fast and scary and aggressive, and they can like hear and smell things. And but the main character is a young man, Jun Woo, who is like stuck in his apartment. His family's gone. There's no food, and but he finds out that a neighbor is alive, and so they kind of team up at one point to try and make it through, get out of the city. Then they encounter some bad things, and I liked it because it's kind of a little bit like flirty. Like you can kind of tell that like the guy is like a little bit interested, but at the same time he's really kind of a shy person, so he doesn't let himself have feelings. So it's really not romantic. So I wasn't in a romance mood for Valentine's Day, but it was really good and I liked it a lot. And yeah, there's also kind of another little sad love story within it, so that was good, I thought. And then another one, which I love this movie and I think it fit for Valentine's Day, Jennifer's Body, one of my favorites. So I mean, I'm sure everyone on the planet has seen it, but Jennifer ends up being some demon creature that eats boys and stuff, and Needy, her best friend, is trying to like save her boyfriend and everything. And then there's like kind of a romance between the two main characters, but then Needy and her boyfriend and whatever. So kind of more of like bad love story, sad ending, really good. And then another one that I kind of wanted to mention, of course, I would say is Sweeney Todd.
Oh yeah.
If you classify that horror movie. Again, kind of a love gone wrong because Helena Bonham Carter, her character is in love with Sweeney, but obviously he's only in love with his wife, his only love. So yeah, those are mine. Another one I wanted to rewatch, 28 Days Later, because it was not really romantic, but you know, Selena and him kind of fall in love in the end, which is sweet but not annoying. So very good. But yeah. And
Cool.
then so hashtag alive. I should have mentioned Korean zombie movie unless
Oh,
yeah, so it's yeah. And there's an American version kind of, but with Tyler Posey called Alone, but
Yes.
not as good.
Oh, is that a similar story? Because I've
Mm.
seen his movie. I think I actually referenced it when we did our zombie episode. So
It's supposed to be kind of American rendition.
nice.
the Alone version? Because you're saying
Alone.
Alive. Okay.
I also
Lexi?
there's a list online I was looking at romantic horror movies, and Phantom of the Opera was on there. So I was tempted to kind of,
Oh,
it's not really that much of a horror, but it's like a thriller and
Yeah.
stuff. But yeah.
See, that's the thing that I struggled with, where, you know, how much horror and how much romance, because it didn't seem like and I didn't watch a ton of movies, but it didn't really seem like you could get the best of both worlds. It was kind of like either or. But I don't know, I guess.
I was expecting to have something that was going to be presented a love story and then turn into something horrific. That's kind of, when I was thinking of romantic horror, that's what I was expecting. But that's seems like such a narrow type of road for a director and a writer to go down. It's like two people fall in love and one of them's bad, you know, because you could, if you think about like love and then horror or thriller, you know, there's Natural Born Killers. I don't know if you girls have ever seen that, but that was
Woody Harrelson.
Yeah, Woody Harrelson and Juliette Lewis, I believe.
Yeah, I love her.
That movie is psycho. But, you know, it's kind of the whole Bonnie and Clyde type thing, is that you're so immersed in their love story, you forgive them for just being psychos and murderers, and which is, it seems easy to do because we tend to get attached to people out of these simple things that we can relate to in characters. And then if they just go off the deep end, we're like, no, it's okay. They're still a good person. And without ruining too much and down, that's kind of how I was feeling when they started to expand their character stories. I'm like, no, he's still a good guy. You know,
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like falling in love with the beast, right? That happens in like a lot of monster movies. There's usually somebody that like sees the soul within the monster. You know, I feel like it's kind of like what Love is Scary, that strong emotion kind of blurring the lines, and I think that's how it can kind of fall into play in the horror genre, or you know, just being like another strong emotion which comes up in a lot of like haunting type stories, revenge, whatnot. Lexi, was that other movie you were gonna talk about, Crimson Peak?
It is. Yeah.
That's a good one too. It's fun because it's Guillermo del Toro, right? So it's super pretty.
Yeah.
All the colors and just the imagery and everything. Has everyone seen that?
No.
Crimson Peak? Yeah. I know, at least I think the three of us have. I don't know if you wanted to talk about Lexi, you could. It wasn't really like one of my like top ones to talk about, but it was like one of the ones that popped into my mind as I was trying to think of like more like romantic relationships within horror stories and how they kind of develop. So
yeah,
that's certainly a twisty one.
Yeah, I have a few notes. I really like it. I saw it for the first time a few months ago, and it actually creeped me out. Like, it was kind of scary at certain times. So that for me was the perfect little happy medium in this genre, for the movies that I watched anyway, because it was that romance story between Thomas Sharp, who's the main character played by Tom Hiddleston, and then Mia Wasikowska, and then her name in the movie is Edith. But anyway, it's this story that's set in the 1800s. It's kind of like, you know, a period piece, which I really like. And one of the things that I loved about that movie was that the main character, Edith, she wants to be a writer. She's a really strong character and she's very secure. And so I hate the term like strong female leads because I think it's just like it's a realistic lead that happens to be a female. There's nothing really that special about it. But anyway, so that carries through the movie. She's just strong and she's fierce and she's brave. And she falls in love with this Thomas Sharp, who's like this wealthy, newcomer from England. So he has an accent and he's, perceivably rich and is a baronet. So he has status and everybody wants him and all this stuff. And so she's like, doesn't want that because she's like, not falling for it. But he ends up falling for her. And so she kind of can't help it. They are both just very intelligent and they get pulled to each other and they fall in love. And so she goes to England. And I don't want to spoil everything that happens, obviously. So I'm kind of jumping, but long story short, most of the movie takes place in this beautiful, like Gothic mansion that's falling apart. And so the visual, very Guillermo del Toro, just like, just dark, but like beautiful. And so I loved that. And there's a lot of use of green and red throughout. So those two colors really playing off of each other. Yeah, good scares. That's like a big note I have is good scares. So if you actually wanted like a romance story that'll creep you out, there's some pretty good CGI.
Some hauntings.
Right. Some unexpected stuff like that. Oh, something really visual too in the movie is, so Crimson Peak is like the nickname that they call the estate that Thomas Sharp has. Him and his sister live there. And they call it that because in the wintertime when it snows, it's built on red clay. So when it snows and like the red seeps through the snow, it looks like blood basically. It's, Crimson Peak. It's on a cliff. So it's very just visual in that way too. And it's a great movie that I would also recommend.
Okay. Since I'm the only one that hasn't seen it.
We all have homework.
Yeah, that's all part of discussing this, isn't it? Is introducing us to each other's like favorites and dislikes. So, Allie, then what was Crimson Peak was one of yours. What was another one?
Well, another one, and again, keeping it and like the idea of playing on, the couples right within the story. I went with Shudder. And I've seen the 2004, Thai version as well, but I'm going to talk more about the 2008 one that takes place in Japan. I've seen it a handful of times. I don't know, very drawn. It's one of my favorites. I don't know why. Good rewatchability factors for me, I guess. It's got Joshua Jackson, which for me, I automatically think Pacey, Dawson's Creek. Some people, Mighty Ducks, whatever. But no, he's Pacey. Or in this case, in Shudder, he's Ben. And it starts off with Ben and his wife, Jane, played by Rachel Taylor. Really like her too in this movie. And it starts off, they're newlyweds, right? So there's your romance factor for you. Got that one. So, and Ben is a photographer. So they get married and he's got this job in Japan. So that's where they go to spend their honeymoon and kind of the start of married life. And he has history there. He's been there before and worked, and he's got buddies there who got him this job. And so, they're all excited. They're all in love, honeymoon phase. And so they go to Japan, and pretty early on in the story, there's this accident, which then kind of really gets Jane in this, kind of off mindset. She's really bothered by it and kind of becomes a little haunted by it. And I don't think it gives too much to say that the accident is she sees this girl in this dress kind of appear in the middle of the road at night when they're driving to their destination. And, Ben, in this case, he wasn't like watching. He didn't really see anything. So he's kind of playing it off. She's like really bothered. He's like, no, honey, it's fine, whatever. She's like, okay. So they, get to meet up with Ben's work buddies who've got this photography job. And then while he's working, Jane kind of has this opportunity to explore Tokyo, and she's playing tourist. And one of the big things that kind of lead in the story is because, he's a photographer taking a lot of pictures, and they start to see these smudges in them. So, the whole time, Ben, he's just like, oh, the camera's broken, like it's ruining everything. And Jane's like, I think there's more to this. Come to find out, when she's kind of talking to other people, they're spirit photos, which is like a really, big deal there. And they go and they meet this guy who has this whole magazine revolving around spirit photos. And again, Ben, the whole time, he's just kind of like, can we really believe any of this? And Jane's like, no, I think something's really going on. I think we're being haunted. And then, so there's all these like creepy situations that they kind of show in the movie separately, like happening to Jane and happening to Ben. And then eventually they kind of meet on the same page where Ben's like, okay, you're not crazy. Yeah, something's going on. Like, so, now they confirm they're being haunted, but by who and why? And it's one of these stories where, you're believing the haunting, and then you learn a little bit more, and then you think you're safe, but then you realize they're not safe still. So you learn a little bit more about the story and who's keeping secrets. And have you guys all seen at least one or the other?
Mm-hmm.
You have? Yeah. So you guys know what happens. Have you seen both, Dad, or one or the other?
No.
Shudder?
I've
I think whether you've seen, the 2004, like the original, the Thai version, or this one, I think you'll appreciate watching the other one too, because they actually follow the stories pretty close. And the reason I chose the 2008 one, just more on theme with today, with love and romance, just because the Thai one, the couple they're kind of following, they didn't show as strong of a like romantic relationship between the two of them, compared to like the newlyweds here. And, the biggest thing, the motivation behind this presence that is haunting them, come to find out that it comes from a place of love and infatuation and rejection and pain, which I think is kind of a central theme on a lot of haunting, right? Spirits usually come forth with some sort of message, and it's led by that. So,
Well, one of the other ones that I watched was I literally just did a search online for Valentine movie, and the movie Valentine came up. So I thought, oh, okay, I'll give that a try. 2001, so it was an older movie, over 20 years old at this point, but lots of familiar faces. And the director was Jamie Blanks, not entirely into the horror genre, but predominantly the horror genre. And this, as soon as it started, I was kind of thinking, okay, this is going to be your classic 1980s type horror story where you have the group of people and you have the evil person, and everybody gets knocked off one by one. And you start to think of, well, maybe it's this person, and that person gets knocked off, and then you whittle your way down, and you actually end up coming back wondering who this person is. The storyline's really thin, happens around Valentine's Day, and there's a lot of junk. In 2001, there wasn't really online dating, but they had video dating. So it dates it with some of the methods that they're meeting each other. There was a thing called speed dating, where you would go and you'd have two long lines of men and women, and then you'd have 30 seconds and you would have little speed dates and get to know. So there's a scene with that where two people get connected through that. But it sets it up in a way, it just doesn't ruin anything, but it's a junior high dance, Valentine's Day. This poor young boy is just trying to dance with these girls, the popular girls, and one by one, they reject him. Finally, he meets this one girl that will give him the time of day, and he is just so infatuated in the moment. And then they end up kissing, and they get found out. Other kids come over and see them kissing, and the girl's embarrassed, the boy's embarrassed, but she blames it all on him. So you can see this scorned poor little boy, how damaged he is. And so you're basically given the villain from the beginning of the movie. So I was like, it can't be that predictable. There's no way. And I didn't want it to be him. And so the movie takes place like 10 or 12 years later. They're all adults, but they're still friends. And the nerd boy, they kind of remember him, but he's kind of a legend at that point. And so, yeah, it's Valentine's Day. They start getting each of these cryptic cards. And it starts out with a really young Katherine Heigl. I don't know if you know who she is, but she was 20, in her early 20s during that. She was really just kind of coming on the scene at that time. And she's not the best actress. She has a part, she's when she put her in that character, she plays that character really well, but doesn't really go outside the lines much on that. So she was fine for that. And then there's Denise Richards, who in that time period, the 90s, 2000s, she tried to be the sex symbol of that era, but she ends up going over into this, and pardon the terminology, but just into the slutty side of things. She just becomes very, her character is that, and it's just like, I don't know. I was kind of disappointed with that because she, from everything I remember, I was kind of hoping that she would be this stronger, the woman, but she just, that's who she was, and I guess she was typecast. But I have to say, the only thing, I enjoyed it because I took it at face value. I knew what I was getting into, and I didn't expect much more. I wasn't wanting more, so I didn't demand like, oh, the acting needs to be better and the cinematography needs to be better. The story was what it was, and it filled the niche that I wanted to fill at the time. But the ending, I kind of wanted to test myself. Okay, if it's not the poor scorned little junior high kid, then who is? So you work your way through all these characters. And then they tease you with the storyline where they give you motive, they dangle this motive of somebody, and then that person gets killed. So then you work your way around and they dangle a motive from somebody else, and then that person gets killed. So I kind of like that, knowing that that's the type of movie that I'm going to watch. And at the end, the very, very end, the final seconds of the movie, I'm like, wait a minute. And I called it out, and I was right. So predictable, but for a movie that was just probably not very expensive to make, 20 years old, just called Valentine, there were some good elements of it. And we've talked about it too, when a director, writer will bring in something iconic as a mask and something that is very faceless and emotionless, kind of like the Michael Myers white mask, that also becomes more creepy when there's not this evil look to it, not like this, evil burnt Freddy Krueger look. My coffee mug. But so the killer's wearing a Cupid's mask, this little baby Cupid's mask, but it's just like so anti-cute, and when they do something visual, like in having dolls in movies or things like that, for some reason it just makes it creepier. It's like, dang, when they were probably doing the preparation for that, and they knew that the Cupid was going to be kind of the initial icon from the beginning of the movie, the Valentine dance. Then how do they incorporate that and bring that into the killer of the movie, and finding this cute little cherub-faced mask that the killer wears? I thought that was effective. So, but as far as rating wise, like I said, it's not nearly a 10 out of 10 given for what my gauge for movies at this point is. I mean, if I really want a good storyline, really good acting, and I want to be thrown out of my chair with the twist, this didn't give me any of that. So it was like a 5 out of 5, 5 out of 10, maybe 6 out of 10. But like I said, it was what it was. It was either that or My Bloody Valentine, the original one from like in the 80s, and I think they remade that in the mid 2000s. So I may go back. You girls have already given me a list here that I have to spend the next week watching here. I was way behind.
I like My Bloody Valentine from 2009. I haven't seen the original, so I probably should, just to, feel well-rounded on it. I probably like it more just because it's got Jensen Ackles in it, the supernatural dude.
Oh yeah.
Decent little twist in it, and it kind of gives you a little bit of that storyline of, like who the killer is and what the exact motive would have been, and kind of laying that out. Not too much, but a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, it's called My Bloody Valentine, so if nothing else.
Well, and it's a remake of the original, right?
Right.
So they're not trying to bring it. It's not like a Halloween type where it's an extension. It was because I remember I was pretty young when that first one came out, and reading about it in the Fangoria magazine, and it was it happens in a little miners town. Is that still the same storyline?
Yeah.
Did they rely kind of on gore as the scare tactic, or is there any other effective storyline things that are just scary?
No, probably gore too. I mean, there's a little bit of a chase, right? Or not knowing exactly when the killer is going to show up. So there's a little bit of that edge, but maybe not quite as like creeper and ominous as say Michael Myers, but a little on that level, I guess.
So do they lead you to believe that the killer in the movie is something? Is it a human? Is it somebody or something?
No, it's
Or-
like it's somebody, but I'd say there's a point where you think that the somebody is taken down, which may make you think like it's more like something. Again, now I just feel like I have to reference Michael Myers again because the shape you can't take him down either, but he's still kind of a person, someone.
Well, I would think of him as more of an entity, like he's in that category with Freddy Krueger, and rather than it's just a human being that's kind of twisted, where some of the storylines are the killer ends up just being somebody they knew, and he can be killed. But that's just kind of, I was curious if it was something spiritual or whatever, because I don't even remember the original one. I probably will have to watch it this week. But yeah, because it was a miner, and I remember always having a miner's mask, and it had a pitchfork and stuff. So in the bloody genre, it was pretty scary back then in the 80s, early 80s, I think. So.
Along the topic, I thought it would be fun to mention, wouldn't even have to talk about the movies, but just other couples in horror or some of our favorites. Like, for example, one of the ones that pops up to me, because I really enjoy these movies, which kind of rides the line of more of like comedy horror, but Chucky and Tiffany, and like their love story, Bride of Chucky. I always think that's funny. And even a little bit too, not that there's a ton of romance between, but a couple, and just kind of the start of it, and how that story plays out. But Sydney and Billy and Scream too, I think that one's worth mentioning. And then even just a couple other movies as like suggestions if you kind of want to loosely watch something within the romance horror genre, and plans for upcoming Valentine's Day. Kind of outer limits, bear with me. The Fly, 1986. Jeff Goldblum, Gina Davis. That's a love story. There's it's very
true.
strong between them, and it's super sad, but it's also very creepy on his development. And then something a little newer, which I definitely thought was creepy, but Gerald's Game from 2017.
Love that movie. Super scary. I was gonna mention The Orphan. Because
oh yeah,
that one's not a love story either, but it has to deal with someone who like has a dangerous, violent, aggressive crush on someone.
Absolutely. I'd say that fits.
Well, yeah, as we're watching these, you discover, and that's awesome that you've kind of totally, what we talked about initially doing this topic was something that was love and scary. That is so predominant in so many storylines, even when a movie is not really touted as a love story, that's just a common thing. It's, is there a man and a woman that through these trials of trying to survive, will they find love? Will one of them be taken away from the other? Given that extreme environment, which is what I thought was going to be kind of the storyline of Down, being stuck in an elevator with a, young man and woman together, and you think this extreme circumstance is going to create love because it strips away, all of these pretenses, and it's very vulnerable, and you really get to connect on this level with two people. And as soon as they get into that, it just twists. And I was like, I did appreciate that, even though, like I said, it was, the rest of it else was kind of thin, but thinking about stories that really end up where you and yourself are watching it and go, I wonder if they're going to end up together. And then finally everybody else dies off, and then they're last ones together. And then, maybe one of them ends up killing the monster or the demon, and they go off, and you just assume that they're living happily ever after. It's a very common thing, and it's something very satisfying about it too. You find yourself rooting for a couple that is fighting together, and their love and protection over that is a driving force through the storyline. So I think that's effective.
Alicia, I thought as far as like honorable mention couples go, and this could be a romantic horror in a way, but the Conjuring movies, specifically the most recent one, the third one, I think.
Yes.
Really heavily emphasize the relationship between Ed and Lorraine, and those are creepy movies. I don't know why I didn't think of those.
Everyone thinks they're so scary. Really, there's a lot of based off of religion and love. So I don't know why, they're considered
Scary
such a
things.
horror.
Those are scary things. Yeah.
Yeah, it's true. Well, even like I always love in the second one too. I mean, they really play on the bond between them, really heavily, and just Lorraine is always so worried about losing him, because I almost called him Patrick.
He's Patrick to you, yeah.
Yeah, he will. And and I just love too when he's playing the guitar for the family and he's singing, right, as like a comfort for them, and she's just like looking at him and just so in love, just like, oh, I can't help falling in love with you.
Oh my God, what about Insidious? Especially, isn't it the second one where he's trapped in the further and he's like playing the piano?
Oh, playing her song. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And that's when, I love that part when she's like playing, she's like, you don't know what that is? He's like, what are you doing? And she's like, that's the song. You're like, not to spoil anything. Oh, I'm getting all excited ahead of myself.
We do this every time where it's like, you girls have given me a dozen movies that I still need to watch, and then I have to remember what you've said about it to kind of pick that up and go, oh, that's what she was talking about. So I always appreciate that. I was going to talk about how I was watching a documentary quite a while ago. It was probably around Halloween, about the series of the Friday the 13th stories, of how it started and what it evolved into, and how they would literally brainstorm on what's the weirdest, most creative way we can show somebody being killed without getting an NC-17, or even in the 80s, there was a different line. I think we'll rate that an X movie or something. Maybe it was just still NC-17, but you could push gore and uncomfortable visuals to a point without getting a rating. And sometimes they would push the limits, and then the rating systems would watch it and have them shave things off, and they'd have to undo some things. But every time I see a group of people in the start of a horror movie, I'm like, okay, this is going to be a creative way of how each and every one of them dies. And in Valentine, in the 2001 Valentine, I like that because it's creative as a writer and a director, and you're thinking how fun it must be sometimes for these actors to get killed in these certain ways. And I remember, I think it was Kevin Bacon in one of the first Friday the 13th movies, that they talked about how he got killed with a spear coming through, and there was this fake torso thing that they had to do. As an amazing rig setup for that time at such a low budget that they worked on. And when it went by the rating systems, they had to shave it way back because it was too good. It was just too gory. And so the security guard, you've all seen Down. So when the security guard is trying to rescue them, and you all know what happened. Did you know what was going to happen when the setup was?
When you get that much through the doors,
Yeah. It was building tension when you're like, okay, they're about to be rescued, and then Guy, or whatever, John, I guess is his real name. Well, I might have just ruined a little bit right there, but anyway, you start seeing him like he's thinking, his face is thinking, because now they're going to be rescued, and what are they going to do? And I knew something bad was going to happen. I didn't expect that, though. Gotta be honest, I didn't expect that.
When the antagonist is realizing he's about to lose, he's about to get found out, and the crazy extent that they'll go to salvage what his mission is, and and he was infatuated with her, so he still in the back of his head thought there was some way that he could still have her. And now I am kind of ruining some of the movie, but it was, by this point, if you're still listening,
end of the episode.
Yeah,
spoilers ahead.
Just watch it. You know what we mean. You'll decode yourself. But so from a script storyline and a character storyline, I love it when a person can effectively give you one character at the beginning of a movie and have a very sharp twist at some point, and then that character remains that other person through the end. I thought he did a good job of that, Matt Lauria, because that's sometimes hard to do, where you're physically and emotionally, and there's mannerisms and everything that define somebody that has snapped and they've become that other person. So that reminds me of the movie Split with James McAvoy, how he must have rehearsed and defined each of these subtle characters throughout, which completely earned my respect as an actor for him. And Matt Lauria did a little bit of that. You know, he's not really as a refined actor as McAvoy, but there was some effective mannerisms and things that he maintained once that change had happened. So sorry if that ruins that part of the movie, but you can still watch it and the ending will toss you. So any other honorable mentions? Brianna, had you thought of any other over the course of this?
Yeah, I was gonna rewatch one. I don't remember what it's called actually, but it has Beyonce. And
Yeah,
what's that one?
obsessed.
Yes, Obsessed.
With Idris
That one I
Elba,
was
yeah.
gonna rewatch. I don't know what
Ali
year it
Larter.
came out. Yeah, it's good. Beyonce's good. It's suspenseful. It's intense. It's
She's
messed
scary.
up. Yeah, it's good. I don't know. Yeah, okay, Obsessed. It's good. Beyonce's the wife. The husband is a businessman, and then the secretary in the office wants to get with him and whatever, and she causes all this trouble trying to do so and whatever. And yeah, good.
I think that's probably early 2000s,
Probably.
somewhere right in there. Yeah. Oh,
That
that was a
just-
good one.
That just reminded me of that Shia LaBeouf movie where his neighbor is.
Disturbia.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Oh, I feel like I watched that not that long ago. Yeah, that's actually a very good movie, kind of underrated in my opinion.
It could be a romantic horror too, because he's
Yeah.
got this relationship building with the new neighbor woman, and some weird stuff is happening at the other neighbor's house that they go and investigate, and it ends up being very twisted stuff. That's a good one. Oh, usually can't go wrong with Shia LaBeouf. Usually can't.
No,
Yeah.
just do it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, we should do another episode where a movie is not presented as horror or thriller, but because of the change, somebody affects the storyline or something happens in the storyline. So let's do that. Let's have another episode coming up soon where good gone bad, where you think it's going to be
Good gone
something,
bad.
Down
a
bad.
normal story, but it turns into be something not to the extreme of like where Poltergeist, they move into a new house and all of a sudden it's haunted, but we'll have to get creative with find, or some kid buys a doll and the doll comes to life and kills everybody. But anyway, limitless, endless ideas of horror and thrillers and all these storylines. It's always a good time. So
Magical.
any closing thoughts on this very broad genre of romantic horror?
No one should say they don't know what to watch.
I was gonna say,
I
I
gave a
think
lot of suggestions.
if we need to reiterate our recommendations, I don't know if I said the name enough of Only Lovers Left Alive.
I
Definitely.
should have watched it since I recommended it. I intended to.
I think you'd like it
I
too.
want
I
to watch
think
it now for sure.
all you guys would like it. Yeah, Crimson Peak also 10 out of 10 would recommend.
Mm-hmm. Shudder.
So
I can't say enough.
Shudder. I second
Yep.
that.
Both of them.
Is there elements to Only Lovers Left Alive that makes it like a creepy horror? Or you was kind of saying that it was a little bit of a funny, but just had vampires in it, which would put it as a horror movie?
So it's like dark because it's never scary. There are parts where you're like on your toes and you don't know what's going to happen next, and you get very sucked in, and it's life or death sort of stuff, and death is a theme, and struggle is a theme, and suicide is a theme. So it's dark. That's the best, a dark romantic comedy. Maybe that's how I would say. Yeah.
Have all you girls seen the series You on Netflix?
Yeah.
Okay. Which is that's kind of he's this lost lover where he's forever infatuated with these specific people, and he's just not right in the head, so I don't even think that's a horror movie, but still it's kind of this very disturbing, dark, long-going love story, and so I just try to wonder about things that Lori can watch with me. She'll take dark, she'll take bad stuff, but once somebody's head gets chopped off, then she's like, I'm out, so
lots of good vampire movies. I feel like that's always a, you know, strong romantic themes within vampire stories for the most part.
We'll have to have a recurring just vampires. We'll do vampires like every other month or something, because that's
Twilight.
Yeah. That's a romantic horror movie, right?
Scurry.
Well, yeah, there's werewolves in that, right? I guess I could watch it for the werewolf aspect.
It's cool. It's cool.
I do want to point out before, Dad, you do the closing. You can't really see it, but this is my T-shirt for today's episode, for today's lesson.
For today's lesson.
I'm very excited. I need to find a better setup so that my T-shirts are more visible, because I have a collection growing of T-shirts for these podcasts. So that'll be a recurring segment. What is my T-shirt?
Should have worn mine, because mine's like floral. The one you got me, Lexi, it's like kind of romantic. I should have worn that today.
Dang it. Redo. Go put it
Wow.
on.
Yeah.
Let's do
Wow.
that.
Edit. Or actually, we'll just edit out Brianna's little square there. Just redo her
Wearing
part.
the shirt with like it's okay. I didn't participate. I've got a SpongeBob t-shirt on underneath this, so I at least covered it up with my sweatshirt. You know.
I think I found every movie reference in this one for the horror dad. There's quite a few, but I've, every visual element that makes reference to another movie. Because we were still in question of whether or not that was Buffalo Bob from Silence of the Lambs or whether it was Jack Nicholson from The Shining. I guess both will do.
My opinion is Jack Nicholson because of the expression on his face. But I think that in order to be able to wear that shirt, you need to pass the test. To be a horror dad, you need to name all the references in that photo. So I think you did it.
But I love that there's even
To watch something.
there's Bates Motel, there's some Beetlejuice.
Oh, I was gonna say Psycho, because he's kind of, it's not Valentine's. Psycho or Bates Motel, whatever. It's not Valentine's, but it's messed up love.
There's still love.
So there's still love. So
A
Oh, the
mother's
movie-
love, a son's love.
Yeah. Yeah.
anyway, also Silence of the Lambs, probably because Clarice and, well, no, because he's kind of obsessed with her. Anyway.
Dr. Lecter.
That's good.
Thank you. I'm a fan.
No, I should share one thing. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt.
No. Wait, one more.
For my student loans, there's a phrase to log in, and the phrase to log in, I shouldn't be saying this, is "Hello, Clarice." That's my phrase that I chose to log in to my student loans. So,
Appropriate. Yeah.
anyway,
It says so much. Well, thank you, girls. This is fun as always. Love spending this time just hearing your insights on these movies and sharing this passion that we've had now, and hopefully we'll continue to have. And hopefully we've educated some people on options to watch for romantic horror and some insights to each of these things that they can keep their eyes open for as they watch. Because I now have your ladies' voices in my head as I'm watching horror movies, and I'm thinking, what would they think of this? And did they recognize this? And I love the inner dialogue that I get to kind of store in there and then purge once we get a chance to talk about this. So thanks for taking the time again tonight as the sun has gone down. We're in 3 different time zones here, which is fun that we utilize technology to do this. But thanks again, and enjoy some movies. And my drink is dry, but cheers.
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 All right, till next time. Love you.
Love you.
Love you.
Bye.
This has been Cheers and Fears. Be sure to give a 5-star rating and share before it's too late.